Hello and welcome to Stencyl. In this lesson, we'll take a look at the Stencyl game development tool, its origins and where it's at today, and what we can use it to accomplish, most importantly. This is also an overview of what we'll be learning to achieve on this course. Firstly, let's take a look at the origins of Stencyl. Stencyl was born of an MIT project known as Scratch. And the concept behind Scratch basically was to take programming principles and abstract them into a simple logic block system, not unlike the process we follow when creating a building using Lego. You click the bricks together to create something meaningful. Well, take that concept and apply it to logic, and that's really what we're doing. That basic concept was taken and grown exponentially into what we know today as Stencyl. Stencyl today is used by hobbyists and professionals alike to develop games for all the major platforms in the indie sector. It is possible to develop amazing games with this tool and even achieve commercial success. Many have done so. So today, what is Stencyl? Well, Stencyl is a huge community of users. The forums are buzzing with activity and energy. People are always posting up their latest work, and they're very quick to help you to find a solution to any problem that you might encounter in your project cycle. Quite a few hit games have already been published using the tool, both for web, primarily Flash. That's the origin of the tool. It was developed as a Flash game development tool, but has grown far beyond that, in the same way that it grew far beyond its Scratch roots. Also, hit games have been developed for iOS. It's a very versatile tool, so it can be used to create any genre of game, in theory. Simple enough for beginners, and yet it has a great amount of power there for people with that little extra bit of knowledge who want to dig in deep. You can even write your own custom code if you get to that level, or if you have programming experience. But don't let that scare you. As a beginner, Stencyl is very good at simplifying things to the point that you can click together some basic gameplay just with a few blocks. So pros of using this tool. There are some big pros. In a nutshell, it's well suited to cross-platform development. Develop your game in one place and then publish to all of the previously mentioned platforms from that same project, just by making a few little tweaks to the control systems and dimensions. It suits non-programmers. They can learn enough to develop games even to an industry standard. All that requires is soft skills such as determination and planning, things which are not specific to any technology, and skills which any person can acquire if they're determined enough to do so. The basic version of the software is free, which is fantastic. We can develop and test on various platforms, and then to publish commercially to different platforms, you can purchase specific licenses. There are various licensing plans available, and they're very reasonably priced if you compare it to other tools that are available on the market. In short, this tool is very suited to indie development. This is because, 1. Cross-platform, low production times. Achieve in Stencyl in a month or two what it would probably take a year to achieve hard coding or working with other less efficient and less optimized tools. So we've mentioned cross-platform development. So once again, build your game once and possibly publish to all of these platforms: iOS, Android, HTML5, Flash, Mac, Windows, Linux. It's simple enough for beginners to get started, and it has great power for advanced users. How can it have no programming? This no programming buzz term is used to promote many game development tools these days. What is traditional programming? Well, traditional programming is when you take your keyboard and you type in the characters into a language. So you type in keywords and variables, and you use looping and if statements and arrays and all of that stuff, and that's how you create your logic. Well, Stencyl frees you from the need to type in those characters. Instead, you drag together blocks. It's that simple. You utilize those same fundamental concepts that are at work in a programming language, but you do it with blocks. So there's no risk of typing the wrong character or getting obscure syntax errors thrown back at you for apparently no reason. For beginners, this tool is fantastic at shielding you from that low-level nuisance of code. And yet you still work with that same logic. You still have all of that power. So you will learn programming concepts on this course, and you will do it in a way that is easy and fun. And most importantly, you will learn to make your own games with Stencyl. As we've already stated, Stencyl is genre independent. It's a game creation tool and can be used to create any game. However, I will stipulate that up to this point, of all the genres possible, the platformer, side-scroller style game is the one that has been implemented the most. And there is a huge amount of support for that. However, any game in theory can be built with this tool, and we will not be building just platformers. We will learn to build top-down games. So you're going to learn a lot on this course. One limitation that I should mention about the tool at the moment is that it doesn't have intrinsic support for isometric games. So if you want to work with isometric games, you might have to wait a little while for Stencyl to get to that point in the way it handles graphics. So what does it take to succeed on this course? Well, you have to commit. You have to commit your time, your mind, and your energy. You need to be willing to complete all the lessons. You need to be willing to perform exercises, to practice what you've learned. And overall, when you've learned the skills that you need to develop games, you need to develop your games. You will be challenged on this course, but stick with it, ask questions. You have me as a facility, so use that. Do the research and learn to problem solve. The key to becoming an effective game designer is learning to problem solve, to think out your problems, break them down into little pieces and solve them one bit at a time. If you can learn to do that, you can learn to be a game developer, a game programmer, a game designer. You can be a successful indie. So how does it work? Please follow the courses sequentially. Don't skip ahead. If you miss a video, you might miss a key point that is built on in a later lesson. The course has been designed for you to be experienced in a sequential fashion. So please follow it that way. The best results will be achieved if you resist the urge to skip any of the lessons. If you don't fully get the sense of a lesson, please review that lesson before you progress on. Or if a concept comes up in a future video that you don't fully grasp, chances are I have a dedicated video on that you probably didn't get the full sense of, and you need to go back and review that. Use the resources folder. At various points we will be developing demos, and you will need to use the sprites that I've supplied. I will of course teach you the basic skills you need to create your own game art using Photoshop, and then those skills will be transferable to other applications if you can't afford to get a permanent license for Photoshop. But don't worry about this course, you can get the free version of Photoshop, the 30-day trial, for nothing. That's not going to cost you anything, and 30 days is plenty of time to complete the asset creation aspect of this course. Just wait until we start onto that before you download it, so you get the full 30 days to work with that. Another point I'll make is that it's best if you view the videos in full screen. You won't get the full effect if you don't, so click on the little full screen icon before you watch a video so that you can see exactly what's going on with the logic blocks and everything else. Okay, let's get started.